So I was thinking it would be fun to do a new segment where I basically talk about the games we play with my friends over the weekend, basically give you a chance to look at older games, let you see games that are still in the collection, and let you see games that are still going through rotation. So we pulled out a couple fun games. I got to teach the game of Mexico, which is a 4-player game, which is a really interesting game. It is basically, I don't want to call it abstract because, well, that's an abstract. Let's call it what it is. It's an abstract game where every player is basically trying to remap the area in an Aztec-style civilization and try and break it down by having your priests get certain areas of certain sizes. If you manage to create these areas of certain sizes, you're going to score victory points. Game's played over 2 phases. Everybody gets victory points. End of the game, whoever has most is going to be the grand winner. We also managed to play Alien Frontiers, which is a dice game where you can use your dice as your spaceships. You roll your dice, you throw them out there on the board, and the dice you roll are going to allow you to do different things such as building new spaceships, building alien technologies, but your eventual goal is to get control of the planet. Whoever has the most control at the end of the game is going to get probably going to get the most victory points and also is going to be the grand winner of the game. Then we decided to go a little bit retro. We decided to pull out a classic older game, a game that's on everybody's mind right now, the game of Heroscape, because Heroscape is back on HasLabs right now, and we go all back the game for $250, and we're sitting there playing the game. We set up the map, we had all of our cards, we got our armies, we started playing, and I started getting bothered by something. We played, and something was nagging me, and then suddenly it hit me. We were playing Warcry, just a simpler version. Hey everybody, welcome to Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews. This is a YouTube channel dedicated to the tabletop gaming hobby. In this video, we're going to look at the game of Heroscape. Why are we going to look at the game of Heroscape? Well, Heroscape is currently on HasLabs for $250, and I've been thinking to myself, is this something I want to get into? I have tons and tons of Heroscape stuff, and we're talking like multiple, every one of the master sets. I have 2 of the first master sets. I believe I only have 1 of the Rise of the Marrow. I even have the D&D master set. I have lots of stuff. Basically, you look at everything I got for Heroscape right here. Well, small sampling. And you can see that I got tons of stuff. And the game is out there for $250 on GameFound right now. Or not GameFound. Wow, just really messed that one up. How about on the HasLabs thing that's from Hasbro? It's their own personal crowdfunding platform. The goal is 8,000 backers. The buy-in is $250, which includes shipping if you live in the United States, and if you live overseas, well, you're going to pay a little bit extra money through shipping. But is the game worth $250 for what you're getting? Especially when, I'm not going to lie to you, when I was playing the game, I literally just felt like I was playing a simplified version of Warcry. Well, Warcry is a game from Games Workshop. It's a competitive game. It's an army building game. It's a list and a set building game where you're trying to basically going through different competitive modes to defeat the other player through either campaign play, through one-offs, or through more of a thematic story-driven campaigns where you're going through various different storylines for all the different factions. Sounds a lot like Heroscape. Let's go and break these down and see if Heroscape is worth the $250 for you, or if you just want to stay with something a little bit more modern, something that's available now, and in many, many cases, you can see, might even be a heck of a lot cheaper if you want to go to Amazon or any of your friendly local game stores that offer a discount. Now, I know what you're saying to yourself right here, right now, but, Heroscape is the battle of the heroes of all time. You can have people with swords fighting people with guns, fighting robots with flamethrowers, fighting aliens from different planets. Well, let's be honest here, it's all a placebo effect. Because basically all they are various different abilities. It doesn't matter if I have my wizard who shoots a fireball, if I have my robot who launches napalm against you, it doesn't matter if I have my fire giant who cuts you in half with his giant sword here, or if I have a robot who's going to come and use his buzzsaw hands to cut you in half. It really doesn't matter. It's all just basically statistics in a game, and quite literally, everything about these miniatures and all these models are 100% interchangeable. Well, maybe not the way they look, because definitely there's a much higher quality when we're looking at Games Workshop models versus the stuff that comes from Heroscape. But basically, mechanically, there really is no different. I can have a frog-like style creature who uses blowgun darts, who shoots poison at you, and the poison's a debuff that either takes away your hit points or makes a debuff on you of some kind. Or I can have a robot who's shooting radiation shots, and these radiation shots, yep, you guessed it, they're going to debuff you or maybe do some damage over time. Or like I've already said, I could have robots that do various different things. They're going to be the exact same effect. I can have a robot with a flamethrower. I can have a military guy with a flamethrower. Or I can just have a wizard, cast fireball. It's the same darn effect. So let's ignore the fact that thematically, let's just take the whole theme out of everything right here. And let's look at these two games 100% mechanically. And why are we going to look at things mechanically? Because we're going to have a good conclusion here at the end where I think everybody can get a really good decision and decide if, yeah, do you want to go $250 in for Heroscape and bring back a game that I'm not going to lie, it is a classic. It's a little bit of a simpler game, but it's definitely a classic. And there's nothing wrong with playing simpler classics. I mean, look at the game of HeroQuest. We all went really excited, got excited about the possibility of bringing back the classic game HeroQuest. And the classic game HeroQuest, well, again, it's a much simpler dungeon crawler. The game has been out so darn long now that there are phenomenal amounts of homebrews and stuff like that that actually makes the game great. That's actually why everybody enjoys the game of HeroQuest. It's not because of the basic game. The basic game is super simplistic. You're rolling dice, you're walking down corridors, and it's basically kind of a slog in some aspects. And I would even say that some of the quests, they're not the greatest in the world. I mean, it's not really balanced that well. But once you start adding the homebrew, the campaign systems that people built, the different mechanics, I mean, you can go to the HeroQuest website. I think it's Ye Grand Old Inn or something like that. I haven't been there in many, many years. I'll leave a link down below if I remember to do so. But you can see all the homebrew that people created for HeroQuest to make it such a great game. That's why Heroscape is such a game that has the love and the passion of all these board gamers out there. It's not the basic game. The basic game is super simple. This is a super simplistic dice game where you're rolling dice. Red dice are for attacks, blue dice are for defense if you have the old school dice, and if you got one of the more modern versions of the game, modern, 20 years ago, whatever you want to say here, you use the white dice where reds for skulls were hits and blue dice were defense. That's basically how it worked. The game was super simplistic with a 20-sided for initiative. You had very simple stat cards. It was a heck of a lot the same of Warcry, because Warcry is definitely a spiritual successor to the game. It's going to break down these mechanics and show you exactly why I'm going to say it's very much a spiritual successor. And then we'll go on and wrap things up and talk about what exactly Heroscape is. Look at the status of the campaign right now and talk about where I think that Hasbro has definitely made a lot of mistakes, especially this new campaign, throwing a lot on the backers, a lot of reliance on you and your hard-earned gaming dollars with a lot of, well, let's talk about the FOMO. Heck, I've already talked about FOMO when we come to these pre-order type systems before, but let's go and break everything down. Let's go and start everything off by looking at the stat cards for both the different games. Warcry over here on the left, and then we have Heroscape on the right. Now, before we go too far into this, yes, in Heroscape, a lot of the heroes have special powers, but in the game of Warcry, the way they make up for special powers is every single faction in the game has special powers that are available to them based on your initial roll. And when we talk about the mechanics between the two games, I'll talk about how that is going to roll together there very, very quickly. But let's just cover the basic mechanics just so you can see how really interchangeable these games are. Heck, it is really 100% possible if you really want to be really funny about it. You could play Warcry on the Heroscape board. You could play Heroscape on a Warcry board. How do you do this? Well, if you want to play Heroscape on a Warcry board, just start using inches for measurement. And if you want to play Warcry on a Heroscape board, you guessed it, the amount of inches you move is how many hexes you're going to move. The ranging works the same. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's look at every single one of these character cards. Every single character card is going to have a cost based on how much it's going to cost to put that specific unit into your warband. Now, when it comes to Warcry, Warcry basically works on a 1,000 point system. Heroscape works on about a 400 point system. So it still works out pretty much the same because your really powerful warriors are going to be just one warrior for a higher price cost, or if you have a whole bunch of weaker units, it's going to be more like a 70 point cost. But you can get like maybe 3 or 4 warriors on that one single card itself. So the points aren't too far off there. Every single one of our heroes is going to have, I guess I shouldn't say heroes. This is Warcry. This is the 8 points. Or it's the Catacombs, or it's even Gnarlwood. Let's just say nobody here is really a good guy. Not even the good guys are good guys. That's just how Games Workshop rolls. But in Heroscape, you can at least be heroic. And let's look at these stats. So I have 2 different cards here, one for the Corvus Cabal right here, and one for Raylan, the Kiri Warrior. We see our point cost. We see that this is going to be about the movement we have, and Warcry is going to be in inches. In this game, it's going to be movement based on hexes. These hexes happen to be 1-inch hexes. Pretty darn interchangeable right there, isn't it? Next up, we are going to have the amount of defense. Now, defense is not going to be 100% interchangeable between these two games Because when it comes to defense, defense for this game is not how many dice you're going to roll. It's basically going to be just what kind of target numbers you need to succeed in an attack roll. I'll explain that when we get into the mechanics of the game here. But you have your defense roll here, which is your actual defense stat versus how many defense dice you're going to roll. Next up, you're going to have how many hit points you have and how much life you have over here. Then you're going to have what kind of attack you're going to have. This is going to be a melee attacker. Sorry, melee attacker. English is hard some days. So this is going to be a melee attacker. This is the amount of range you have. This is how many dice you're going to roll to attack. This is your strength that you're going to compare to your target's defense to find out if you're going to succeed on a hit of 1 through 3, 1 through 4, or 1 through 5. Either way, 6s are always criticals. You roll 6s, they always hit. And that's where we go to break down the amount of damage you're going to do. You're either going to do 2 points damage for a standard hit, in this specific case for this card, all the different warbands and all the different creatures have different abilities to do different amounts of damage. Or you can do 5 points damage for every single crit you roll. So while we see over here on Heroscape, when we roll the attack dice, in this example, I would simply roll 3 attack dice, and I'm looking for skulls. Every skull I roll is going to be 1 point of damage. When we get over to the game of Warcry, I'm going to roll a certain amount of dice based on my attack stat. In this case, we're going to have 4 attack dice. And then my dice are going to be hits or misses based on my strength compared to my target's defense. If our strength and defense are equal, we're going to look for a certain target number. If my strength is higher than their defense, I'm looking for a better target number. If my strength is lower than their defense, I'm looking for a worse target number. Either way, 6 are still crits. But even though we have more hit points over here, you see that we have potential to do more damage. Now, I didn't do any crits over here because, well, no 6s. But if these had all been really high number 6s right here, that is a possibility of I just did 12 points of damage right there. So even though we only have 5 life versus 20 life, when we're hitting a lot harder, it all still balances out pretty much almost exactly the same. Just a little more thematic here and a little bit more swingy. You'll see why when we get back into more of the mechanics of these two games. Now, both these games do have a scenario mode, but only Warcry offers a campaign-based system where your campaign is going to allow you to level up your heroes, get loot, get various different things, and go through a complete campaign system where you're telling your story. Heroscape out of the basic set doesn't do anything, so we have an obvious winner here, Warcry with the scenario campaign-style adventures, if that's how you want to play. But if you're just looking for one-off scenarios, both these games have a lot of similarities. Again, talking about the similarities between the two games. The basic idea is you're either going to use a predefined scenario for Heroscape if you want, or for both these games, you're going to basically build up a board. Both sides are going to agree what kind of board they want. And again, you don't want to make one side of the board look better than the other one, because whoever gets that side of the board is probably going to have a good advantage. So that's kind of one of the helpers to prevent any kind of unbalances in the game. You just simply build up your board however you want it between the two sides, and then you're going to build your armies based on specific scenario requirements that may happen to be. Now, generally speaking, when it comes to Warcry, 1,000-point armies, generally speaking, for most of the scenarios when it comes to Heroscape, it's going to be about a 400-point army. You build it up through your list, through the different abilities, and these games have a lot of similarities. I could break it down a little bit further, but it's going to bore you. It's a lot the same. They're basically doing the same thing, using different words for the same thing, but the basic idea happens to work completely the same. The only slight difference here is when it comes to Warcry, you're going to break down your individual army into 3 smaller little subsets. And I know I just said army. It's a skirmish-style game. Pretend I never said army. But you're going to break your little squadron into 3 smaller subsets. You're going to have your hammer, your anvil, and your, I think I was Jewish blank, I think it's shield. Somebody will correct me in the comments down below. And then the way your squad is going to come on the board is going to be based on a scenario where you're going to draw cards. And that cards are going to dictate how you're basically going to lay out the board, basically how you're going to come in on the individual scenario, and when your specific smaller subset of your squad is going to come out on the board. And it's also going to dictate where on the board you can actually bring your squadron units into the board. So it has a, throughout the game, feeling of constant reinforcements, where Heroscape, as a game, you're basically going to put your entire army on the board and you're going to start going bashing head-to-head versus each other. Now, both these games, when it comes to actual rules themselves, they are a little bit more melee-centered. I know both of them do offer range combat, but both of them have the same feeling when it comes to range combat. You're basically going to attack from a distance, or you're going to attack when it comes up close next to each other. You're both going to get bonuses and penalties based on how you're going to be attacking each other, based on line of sight. Both of them have line of sight. Both of them have different ways to do those different things. So they're really, really similar. So I kind of have to give a pass on both these games, being pretty similar in both those aspects. If I had to choose one that I liked a little bit better, I would probably give the nod over here to Warcry because the combat feels a little bit more robust, especially when you have a lot of melee characters in the game, whereas Heroscape, you have a lot of melee characters. It's a lot of just move up, throw dice, and it feels like a lot of bashing. Whereas in this game, you get a little bit different abilities through the different abilities of the initiative, and different abilities of the individual ways that you get bonuses and stuff that you can be stuck, and it works a little bit better for me. But now that we're talking about the initiative system, this is something I want to cover that when I talked about earlier about having every one of the individual heroes having special powers. Well, in Warcry, they do it a little bit differently because the way the initiative system works in Warcry is very, very different than Heroscape. And this is where the big two differences becomes between these two games. If you don't care about campaign systems, this is going to be the big make it or break it when you decide which one of these two games you might be more interested in here. When it comes to Heroscape, every one of your heroes has individual powers. You look at all these cards, you see all these different cards. They all have individual different powers based on the individual hero, and that's specific to that hero only. When it comes to the game of Warcry, though, it looks a little bit differently, and it's going to be completely set based on your specific initiative card, because your abilities are tied to your initiative, and the way initiative works in the game of Hero or in Warcry is every player is going to roll their initiative dice, and they're looking for unique dice, and they're also looking for matching dice. The more unique numbers you have, the higher your initiative roll is, but the less special abilities you have access to. The more numbers that you have that are all matching up, the more special powers that you have access to, because you're going to see things like double, double, triple, and a quad. What does all that mean? Well, if I have 4 dice that all happen to be the same number, I can use my quad power for any one of my heroes that has a special rune mark that is matching on their specific hero card. Some hero cards, like leaders, have access to more rune marks. Some of the more grunt style units have less access to all these rune marks. Now, I do have this quad right here, and I use it for my big special power, or I can use it for my triple, or I can use it for one of my doubles. But basically, the better you roll on initiative, the less access to abilities you have. The worse you roll on initiative, the more special abilities you have, which is a really cool ability, and it's something that I really enjoy about Warcry. It's one of the things I find so fascinating and really, really enjoy. It's an amazing balance how they manage to do that. Heroscape does a little bit differently, and I have to give kudos here because the way Heroscape does is actually pretty darn unique and very, very interesting as well. You see, in Heroscape, you're going to have initiative tokens that you're going to lay out on your individual warrior cards at the start of every single round. Initiative's rolled through a d20. Whoever rolls highest has initiative. It's super duper basic. But you're going to have 4 of these, numbers 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to have 1 that is an X. And after everybody rolls initiative, they're going to place these tokens out on their heroes any way they want. And even the same hero card can get multiple copies of these little tokens. So I can go like this, and then go like this. And with my final one, I could even put 2, so both these guys are going to activate, or I can put my final one over here. It doesn't really matter. It's based on the strategy and the tactics and the style of gameplay that I want to be playing at this point. After all the players have put their little initiative tokens on all of these, all the players on their initiative are going to reveal their lowest initiative number. And again, these are numbered 1 through 3 plus an X. So your X means that that is not going to activate, and that's going to be the final one you're going to reveal. But the rest of them, you're going to reveal in numeric order. So this happens to be my 1. When my initiative comes up based on the D20 roll that we did earlier, I'm going to activate whichever unit has my 1. I simply reveal it, do actions with that, and it's basically a move and attack, and you're basically done after that. Then all the other players go around the table doing the 1. Then we're going to come back to me, and I'm going to get a chance to activate my 2. This will be my 2. I'll reveal it. He'll do his actions. We'll go around the table with all of our 2s. Then we'll go ahead and reveal our 3s. After all the 3s have activated, the turn's over because there's nothing that's going to happen for the X's. It's kind of a bluff. So the interesting thing here is what I can do is as my army is being defeated and I'm slowly losing units, in a way I kind of get a little bit more powerful because now I can activate that unit multiple times. And this is my big heavy hitter, my big tank with lots of hit points, lots of defense. I'm not quite out of the game yet, which is nice and a really cool ability, which is something that Warcry does definitely lack, because in Warcry, as you're losing your units, as your units are being pulled off of the board, and as you're taking more and more damage to your squad and it's quickly being whittled down by your opponent, there's no helper on that aspect. So it does get to the point where you can finally realize in the game of Warcry, things are not looking your way, things are looking very bad very quickly, and the chances of you surviving and pulling things out are pretty slim. What Warcry does to make up for that aspect, though, is it has different objectives where you're going to score victory points every single turn, because the game is only going to be played for a certain amount of turns, and you're going to gain victory points at every single turn by doing various different things, whether it's controlling objectives, whether it's taking down its enemy's leader, or anything along those lines. that is how you're going to score at the end of the final round. You're going to add up your victory points. So even though your squad might be wiped out, you're still possibly can win if you manage to do those objectives, holding those objectives, scoring those victory points, taking out your enemy leaders, whatever happens to be, to score the victory points based on the scenario you happen to be playing. Not only that, one additional way the game helps that aspect in the game of Warcry is the simple fact that in a Warcry, you don't bring all your armies out at one time. Or, I said armies again. I got to get that word out of my vocabulary today. All your squad out on the table at the same time. You're going to bring 1/3 of your squad out every single turn, well, based on the scenario. Some scenarios are a little bit differently, but you get the basic idea here. So when it comes to these two games, honestly, if I had to be 100% honest here, I actually kind of like the initiative system here in Heroscape, because Heroscape, the way it does it, it's unique. It's faster, and it's very nice and clean. I like the bluffing aspect of it, and I do like the fact that as you get whittled down, you don't feel like you're getting kind of like in a really bad position where you feel like the game is just really turning against you very, very quickly. I like that aspect, but on the counterpoint over here in Warcry, I really do like how the special abilities work. Your special abilities are not specifically tied to one specific hero here at all. Your special abilities are going to be tied to multiple of your heroes based on how well you roll your initiative dice, whether you're gaining really good initiative and going first, or you're gaining really terrible initiative but gaining access to a lot of these special powers. And again, these special powers can make a huge, huge difference on the things they can do, and they're very thematic, and they always match what your squad can do. So which game is the better game? Well, that's kind of a weird question. It's not really a question that you can answer, because neither one of these games is a better game. I will say that Warcry does feel like more of a robust game due to the way that its certain rules are with different things that change, and this is not a rules breakdown for either one of these games. Warcry does offer some interesting rules, especially in the second edition of the game, such as the fact that you can actually activate your units. As long as they have not taken an action, you can do reactions. Those reactions can make some huge difference the way the game plays. Whereas in Heroscape, if one of your units goes later in the initiative and someone comes up and just bashes them very, very quickly, nothing you can really do about it. So I got to say Warcry does feel a little bit more of a robust game, but both these games have their individual advantages, and I actually prefer the initiative system over here in the game of Heroscape. So where do we go from here? Well, why did I even want to compare these games to Warcry? Well, besides the fact that one does feel like the other one, except for a little more robustness, both these games are $250 pretty darn easily for enough to really enjoy the games. For Heroscape, you can go ahead and back the game now for $250 on the HasLab pre-order system. And I'm going to cover the FOMO part of that in just a second, because it's something that really annoys me. And actually, kind of gives me a little bit of anger about some things in the hobby here. And I'm going to probably rant a little bit, so just a little bit of warning here. But for $250, you're going to get 71 miniatures. You're going to get 76 pieces of plastic terrain. You're going to get 9 pieces of actual terrain that matches in like some jungle bushes and 3 trees. And I'm doing this all from memory, so if I get any of these wrong, I'm doing this from memory. You are getting, I believe, 46 different castle tiles that you can go ahead and build your entire terrain, plus you're getting the 71 miniatures. All that is going to be for $250. If Hasbro can get 8,000 backers to back the project to bring it out, because they're saying it's going to cost them $1 million to pay for the manufacture of the molds for all these miniatures. That's what they're alleging. I'll go back to that in just a second. Over here, looking at the game of Warcry. For $250, you can go on Amazon right now and you can get the Red Harvest box for about $140. That's going to leave you with $110. Now, the Red Harvest box does come with a very nice set of terrain. It's not the terrain I have set up here, but basically it looks like a dwarven forge with a whole bunch of carts and areas where the ore being brought down to a smelter. Big pieces, there's 2 giant pieces, a whole bunch of rows of smelting columns for all the ore to go across each other. Plus you get 2 warbands. I think there's about a total of 25 units between the 2 warbands, but that's going to cost you $140. For the difference of $110, that is more than enough to buy pretty much 2 good factions. That'll give you a total of 4 factions that you can play with, bringing your total model count probably up to about 45 models. I'm trying to be conservative here. So for about for $250, you're getting 45 models, a flat terrain piece because it's going to come with a cardboard board, lots of dice. You're going to get different initiatives, but you're going to get 4 different factions that you can play the game, and these 4 factions will play very well against each other to enjoy the game. Whereas opposed to when we go here over to Heroscape for $250, about the same price, you're getting all those things I mentioned over there before. About 30 more miniatures, some more terrain tile pieces versus actual terrain right here. I know which I think visually looks better. I know the hex train idea is kind of a cool idea, but visually, I think this looks a heck of a lot better here. And let's be honest here, everything Games Workshop does when it comes to plastic miniatures always looks good. Their quality of miniatures is always fantastic, and there is no way what Heroscape and Hasbro is going to put out is going to be anywhere close to the quality of these miniatures. Now, the original Heroscape was painted. The new Heroscape is not going to be painted, and you look at the quality of the pre-renders that they have on the website. But let's be honest here. Let's look at the quality of HeroQuest that just came out recently. That is probably the quality that Heroscape is going to have, and we can compare the quality from HeroQuest to the quality from Warcry, and you can definitely see where the better quality is. And don't forget, it's not going to be painted, the stuff that's coming from Heroscape. The $250 new HasLab backing thing, it's all unpainted. There's going to be colored plastic. There's red and a couple different other colors. So the plastic is going to be colored to tell the difference between the factions, but they're not going to be painted at all. So for $250, looking at what you're getting in the box, you're getting more miniatures, more plastic, but lower quality looks and quality of the plastic, versus less miniatures, but a little bit better look, higher quality models, and a more robust look and a better quality to the plastic itself. So we can probably give a nod over here to Heroscape because you're going to get a sheer quantity of more stuff, and I'm sure the painters are going to appreciate it. But if you want to be honest, if you're just looking for the look aesthetically, I still think Warcry has a better look, but I'm not afraid to admit that for your dollar for your plastic, you're going to get more with Heroscape here. Now we're going to get to the point where I have a whole bunch of heartburn here and a little bit of annoyance with the whole thing, the way they do this. Hasbro is advertising Heroscape as we are only going to do this game if 8,000 of you back our game because it's going to cost us too much to do this. And we want every one of you to front the $250 a piece to cover our costs to go out there and do this. That's a bold-faced lie. I'm going to come here and I'm going to straight up say that's a bold-faced lie from our industry, and it really does frustrate me and it really does annoy me. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get very frustrated with me saying that, but it's true. If Hasbro had any reason to believe that Heroscape was going to be profitable, they would not need your money to do this. Hasbro is a multi-billion-dollar company that makes a heck of a lot of money. They don't need your money to put out Heroscape. And I know I'm being a little bit angry here, but it really does frustrate me because there are a lot of people who are buying into the hype and saying, we have to back this, we have to throw $250 at them right here, right now, or this game is never coming out. Look, it's not true. They've already done the 3D render, so they've already thrown money at this game. They just want you to cover their costs so they don't have any out-of-pocket costs from their own company, their billion-dollar company, and they want you to support them and cover their own costs. They did it wrong. I would have been happy to go in there and back Heroscape for what it is for a much, much more reasonable price point, because the price point they have there for $250 is absolutely ridiculous. I know what they're saying is they want you, the consumer, to completely back a 100% full retail run for Heroscape. And don't kid yourself. That is exactly what they're asking you to do here. They're 100% asking you to back a full retail presence. Because I can tell you the base box for Heroscape, when it actually hits retail, it's probably going to have like 30 or 35 miniatures. Probably going to have half of the terrain in it, maybe one or two trees. And no, I'm actually lying to you. I can guarantee the trees are going to be a separate expansion. So you're probably going to get the basic tiles and 35 miniatures for $100. Then for about $50, they're going to give you the jungle expansion, which is going to have the trees and a couple more miniatures. Then for another $50, they're going to give you a couple castles and a couple more miniatures. And then for another $40, they're going to come out with the little booster packs for all these additional miniatures. That is how they should have presented this game on the Heroscape HasLab's backing platform. Not asking everybody to go $250 into the game. That was an extremely high ask, and that is one of the reasons why I compared it to Warcry here. Everybody likes to complain that Games Workshop charges a heck of a lot of money for the games. They do. I'm going to agree with you. Games Workshop games are extremely expensive. There's only one company I think that really goes higher in the price, and that's Kingdom Death Monster, but look at the quality miniatures you get there. Games Workshop charges a premium because they put out a premium product. Hasbro is trying to charge you a premium price for a game that is not a premium product. Yes, it's fun, but it's a simpler game. It's a game that's over 20 years old. It's a game that has simpler mechanics. And I think I said 20 years, but I think Heroscape is actually only 18 years old. Math is hard some days. But it's a game that has older mechanics, older gameplay, and there's games that are out right here, right now, that you can go buy right now without throwing your money towards somebody for a promise of something in the future. Something that you buy right here, right now, and enjoy right here on the tabletop. a game that's slightly, a little bit more robust mechanically, plays in about the same amount of time, and let's be honest here, they're pretty much the same games when we look at them mechanically. That's why I broke down the mechanics. That's why I broke down everything that was going on here, just to show you that I think Hasbro went about Heroscape completely wrong. I would love it if they would go back to the drawing board and either bring out the game. Well, they should just bring out the game because they know we're going to sell it. They can look at how much they sold HeroQuest for, how many copies were out there in the wild, and I'll tell you why they're not doing it. This is going to cause some more heartburn for everybody, but you know why they're not doing it? Because when the original HeroQuest was on HasLabs, it was $150. Once it left HasLab and went out to retail, guess how much you can buy HeroQuest for? I got my copy of HeroQuest for $80. Now I know a lot of you are going to say, but I got the special extra things. I got 3 extra heroes and a couple extra bad guys and everything like that. That wasn't $70 worth of extra stuff plus the shipping you had to pay for that game when you back that on HasLab. That is why that they're trying to make everybody go all in right here, right now. So they get all of your money up front. And I can guarantee you that when this game goes to retail, because if Hasbro thinks it's going to be profitable, it's coming out whether you back it or not. When it comes out to retail, the prices are going to be much, much more reasonable. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this, what I feel is a more honest breakdown of what is going on for the Hasbro Heroscape HasLab backing project for the game of Heroscape itself, and showing you how it is a little bit, really much a lot like what we already have out there in the hobby and available to us right here, right now. If you have any comments, questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll do my best to answer those questions as quickly as I can. You also feel free to email me off the show board game reviews. That is otsbgr@gmail.com. I do my best to answer those emails as quickly as I can. If you enjoy the content and you enjoy the videos I put out there, think about supporting the channel on Patreon. Just $1 tip jar can help me cover my costs, help keep the channel growing strong. I'm about to hit my 10-year anniversary here in February of 2023, and it'd be absolutely fantastic if I can get to 10,000 subscribers. That's my current goal I'm working towards right now, 10,000 subscribers by my 10-year anniversary. Please help me get that goal by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Thanks for watching.